Welcome back. You're watching Newslink. Now, the Automobile Association is urging President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint a strong personality to replace Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula. The organisation says the position requires a leader who will prioritise the needs of citizens who desperately need safe, affordable and reliable transport. To discuss this further, we're joined by the spokesperson for the Automobile Association, Layton Beard. As always, Layton, thanks for joining us this morning. I suppose you look around at the people that surround the president and you wonder who would be best fit to take on the role of the Minister of Transport. I'm not asking you to give a particular name. If you could, that would be great. But apart from what I mentioned in terms of the qualities that you would look for, the kind of minister you would hope would lead this department nationally, Layton, who would that be?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't have a name. I don't think we specifically didn't mention anybody. We would want the president and his advisors to look at somebody who has very strong leadership skills and who is capable of bringing different, very complex strands of issues together in such a way that we can start to see meaningful changes in some of the areas that are of concern to the AA. And those, of course, relate to making transport affordable and safe and reliable for South Africans, and ensuring that we have better road safety in the country, that our roads are better designed and better maintained to ensure better road safety, that we have safer cars on the roads. So we don't have anybody specific in mind. We are sure the president has people within his cabinet or within his circle that he has in mind for this position. We are simply urging that whoever gets that job of transport minister is someone who is able to be very strong in terms of bringing those strands together and has the political will to ensure that there are meaningful changes that are affected, specifically in terms of road safety. I'll give you one example. In 2019, our road fatality statistics stood at 12,540. In 2021, 2 years later, there were, I think, 34 people more died in that year. So just over 12,570. So there has been no meaningful reduction in road fatalities, and our road safety record has not improved over the last couple of years. And for us, that's a very key thing that we want the new Minister of Transport to focus on going forward.
Yeah, you've mentioned a number of complex issues around road safety and affordable transportation, Layton. But if we're going to focus on your top priority, which you say is road safety, how would the new minister even begin to tackle that? Because there are so many issues, including the lack of maintenance and other resources that have led us to where we find ourselves today. So how does one or the new minister even begin to tackle this huge issue of road safety?
Well, it's a very interesting question because, you know, the wheel does not need to be reinvented. In 2019, the Traffic Law Enforcement Review Committee, which was a committee that was established by the previous Minister of Transport, released a document on traffic law enforcement. And for us, that's an excellent and probably the best place to start if you are looking at improving our road safety in South Africa. We need double the amount of traffic law enforcers than what we currently have. There are many issues around traffic law enforcement that can easily be resolved if the recommendations of the review committee are implemented. And for us, that's a very key thing that needs to happen. The fact that it hasn't happened up until now in 2023 is problematic for the AA because it's a document that really proposes very serious resolutions to many of the problems we have. So for us, that's a very good place to start.
What about the issue around infrastructure? Because I suppose everything is intertwined, Layton, and you've seen the dilapidation of the road infrastructure across the country because of the crippled railway system that we have in the country at the moment. More trucks are finding their ways on the roads, and they just weren't built for the capacity that they're accommodating now. How do we deal with that particular issue of infrastructure, putting aside issues of maintenance, because that in itself has also become quite a big issue? The infrastructure issue, how do we deal with that?
Well, I think the Department of Transport and Department of Public Works have some serious work ahead of them. And, you know, in our view, if we look at the current situation, there is a lack of proper coordination between those two departments. So it seems to us that a good place to get the ball rolling in terms of proper maintenance and infrastructure development would be there on a regional and provincial basis. We know that SUNRAL is very involved in national roads, and those roads, by and large, are very well maintained and are in a good condition. But it's at a provincial and a regional level and a municipal level that those roads are beginning to fall over. So certainly there's an entire issue around local government and local government maintenance. But certainly the Department of Transport and the Department of Public Works have some serious issues to deal with in terms of their coordination to deal better with those issues.
Now, the ANC resolved that the different state-owned companies need to be run by various departments. For example, Eskom being run by the Department of Energy, and so it goes on. The management of an SAA, for example, by the Department of Transport, should this go through. Do you think that there's enough capacity to be focusing on that as well, or do you find that the decision or the resolution by the ANC is perhaps one that is not ideal for the state-owned institutions?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on the ANC's position on that. And, I think the AA does not get into those political debates. What we would say is when you look at the state-owned entities that fall within our ambit, and amongst those would be the Road Traffic Management Corporation and the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, we've identified some serious issues within those agencies and some serious deficiencies. When we look at, for instance, the Road Traffic Management Corporation, it's the lead agency in terms of road safety in South Africa, yet our road safety record is extremely poor and not improving. Yet at the same time, we find very senior people within that department are still receiving bonuses annually, and that is problematic for us. So we have some concerns there. So from our perspective, we would like to see whatever management of these state-owned entities is eventually adopted, that they are efficient and that due diligence is done in terms of the capacity of whatever department or entity is going to manage them going forward, that they have the capacity to do that. So we won't get involved in the political debate. All we want to see at the end of the day is a state-owned entity that runs efficiently and runs to the benefit of citizens. If that means incorporating it into a specific department and then that's going to work, or if it means keeping it out of that department, whatever, at the end of the day, we just want an SOE that is functional, efficient, and works in the interests of citizens.
Another big cloud that's been hanging over our heads, particularly here in Gauteng, Layton, is the issue of e-tolls. And we heard at the midterm budget policy statement that there was a resolution, and now they're basically saying that they're finalizing a memorandum of understanding of how payments or repayments will work, and that it is going to be finalized. What do you say with the back and forth that we've seen over the last few weeks around this issue? And are you confident as the AA that there is progress in finalizing this cloud that's been looming over our heads for years now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the e-toll saga is super unfortunate specifically for Gauteng residents and motorists. I think what we have at the moment is more confusion as to what's going to happen going forward than clarity, and that's a huge problem. We need to know how big the debt is that we need to pay, and why, and how the refunds are going to work, and how the system is going to operate going forward. There are many unanswered questions around e-tolls that need to be resolved. So from the medium-term budget policy statement to now, really, there's been very little in terms of encouraging news for Gauteng motorists, and we would obviously like to see that clarified. I think going forward, they owed that clarity, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Again, we want to see politics taken out of this, and whatever is best for the motorist and the consumer needs to be implemented as a matter of urgency. And the fact that there is this confusion is extremely concerning. And like many other organizations who have commented on this issue, we're astounded that we've reached this point with no clarity at all going forward.
And then just a final thought from you, Layton. You did mention it briefly as a priority of the AA that the Ministry of Transport should look at. But the issue of public transport, there are so many bus and transit infrastructure or projects that have been started in different parts of Gauteng alone that have yet to be finished. You know, I know one that was started in Sandton, for example, in 2017, and it still sits unused to this day. How does this happen, and how does the Department of Transport fix this issue so that commuters, like you say, have affordable ways to travel to and from work and other places across different parts of the country?
That's an extremely loaded question. I could give you a very convoluted and long answer, but I'll give you the short answer. There is money available that unfortunately is being misappropriated, in our view, to wrong entities, which should actually be appropriated to better infrastructure development. The Department of Transport, as I said earlier, has many challenges going forward. One of them is ensuring safe, reliable and affordable public transport. You make the argument in Gauteng, and we have an example in Gauteng that we are extremely concerned about, and that is the Gautrain. 2 billion rand over the last, in 2021, in 2020, 2 billion rand in each of those years, and going back, 13 billion rand over a period, was given to Gautrain to subsidize it for low ridership levels on that system. Now, in our view, that money should have been taken and pumped into better public transport initiatives like setting up better bus services or improving bus services to township areas. And that's simply not happening. So if you look at the Gauteng transport budget of 9 billion rand, immediately 2 billion is taken off to give to a private company, Bombela, for the management and operations of the Gautrain to subsidize them for low ridership levels. It's a problem for South Africans, it's a problem for Gauteng, and it's a problem for the AA. And we think the Department of Transport needs to intervene there, and we seriously need to look at issues not only such as the Gautrain funding, but at other projects that take money away from citizens and put them where they shouldn't be.
Layton, thank you very much for that insightful conversation this morning. The Department of Transport and finding a suitable leader to take over from Fikile Mbalula when the President reshuffles his cabinet. That is anticipated to happen soon. Layton Beard of the AA joining us this morning.